Those who spend their wealth in Allah's cause by night and day, in secret and in public, they shall have their reward with the Lord. On them shall be no fear, nor shall they grieve. I think this is such a powerful verse, because whenever you are so conscious of your money being pure, your money being clean, that when you've held on to money, surplus money, that you're giving it back the way that Allah has ordained you to give it back. You are spending your wealth in the cause of Allah. That's another way of spending your wealth in the cause of Allah. You're spending your wealth in the cause of Allah when you put money into that red box that goes around and we do dawah. You're spending money in the way of Allah when you put gas in your car and you drive to the masjid. Whether it's secret or in public, you will have your reward with Allah and you don't have fear. Do you remember how I always teach you that doubt, worry, and fear are the opposite of faith, hope, and trust? Well, you will have faith, hope, and trust if you live according to the economic advice of the Holy Quran. But you will have the opposite when you don't know if you can pay those bills or not. You have fear and worry and doubt. Right?
Yes.
The likeness of those who spend their wealth in the way of Allah is as the likeness of a grain. It grows 7 ears, and each ear has 100 grains. Allah gives manifold increase to whom He pleases. And Allah is all sufficient for His creatures' needs, all knower. You will never, ever lack if you give. And I want to tell you the best way to learn this is when you think you don't have anything, start giving. And find out how Allah returns it to you. It's unbelievable. And for those, particularly like my son that loves farming, we're so happy to have Bilal with us today. He's a WOOFer, which is the World Organization of Organic Farmers. And he experiences God on the farm, and he shares that in such a beautiful way. Alhamdulillah. If you think about wheat, the power of wheat, on one stick, one stalk of wheat, how many buds are there? Am I using the right term?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. How many buds are there? And that's, the wheat is what, this is referring to corn, because in the English translation, they felt like the English-speaking people would relate to corn more than wheat. But wheat has more buds, if you look at the little stalks. But even if we use corn, one little corn seed planted produces that stalk with several ears of corn with all of those kernels on it. And when you give to Allah, that's the way Allah gives back to you. And I know from personal experience, I've experienced that. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, give the sadaqah without delay, for it stands in the way of calamity. What I want you to know is that if you have this surplus money, as soon as it's available, give it, because it is an insurance policy. That is what Allah is saying. It's what the Messenger is saying to us here. That giving money is an insurance policy. So never ever be afraid to give Allah a loan. Never be afraid to give money to Allah, because you will always, always, always be blessed. And I just threw this in here because I think it's so beautiful. This is a supplication that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ used to make in times of trial. He used to say, at the time of difficulty, none has the right to be worshipped but Allah, the Majestic, the Most Forbearing. None has the right to be worshipped but Allah, the Lord of the Tremendous Throne. None has the right to be worshipped but Allah, the Lord of the Heavens and the Lord of the Honorable Throne. And this is found in Sahih Bukhari. And I think that when we are having difficult times, we should make this dua. We should acknowledge that when we are saying that none has the right to be worshipped but Allah, the Majestic, He is the majestic one that's going to bring us out of the difficulty we are in. And He hears the suppliant. Every time we call on Allah, He said, ask me before you ask somebody else. But we typically don't do that. As soon as we have a little trouble, we run to someone and say, can I borrow $100? What we should do in the practice of Islam is say, oh Allah, I have a bill. Please help me to get some work so I can get this $100 and pay this bill. So here's some literal meanings. You may want to take a picture of this or write it down. I wanted you to see some of the verses in the Quran where you see the word zakat. In verses 1 of chapter 24, in verse 4 of chapter 23, it means to be clean. In chapter 2, verse 43, it means to pay the obligatory charity. In chapter 19 and verse 19, in chapter 18 to 74, it refers to being pure and to being innocent. And I think there's some power behind that. I want to do some more research on that. Did everybody get that? Okay, and here's just a few more. To be better in purity, chapter 18, verse 81, chapter 19, 13, and to justify, chapter 53 and 32. Zakat means all of these things, folks. So this could be, I mean, you could talk about zakat for weeks. Thank heavens I'm not going to do that. So, Surah Al-Tawbah, verse 103, commands it. Now, listen folks, I want you to see the importance of this, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the leaders of communities. And listen to the wording of this. Take alms out of their property. You would cleanse them and purify them thereby. I dare say today that if a man rocked up at most people's door and said, I'm here to take the alms, he might be met with a double-barrel shotgun. But I want you to see that it is the command of Allah. We are actually supposed to do that. We have the IRS. It really steals in America. They take it from you. I mean the Internal Revenue Service, I'm sorry. They get theirs. Even if they're wrong, they get theirs.
And if you're late, they really...
And then they penalize you. Allah told us as leaders to go and take this money from the people. We don't do that. We don't obey Allah in this respect. We just sort of hope that people will pay it. And what's really sad is a lot of people don't know how to pay it, and that's why I do this class. And that's why you'll get a handout on how to do it today, if you want one, each family. So whenever we would do that, in other words, if you allowed me the blessing to go to your house and sit down with you and help you figure out how to pay your zakat, I would actually be getting the blessing of helping you be purified. It says you would cleanse them and purify them. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. Hadith narrated by Ibn Umar. Allah's apostle said Islam is based on the following 5 principles to testify that none has the right to be worshipped but Allah, and Muhammad is Allah's apostle, to offer the compulsory congregational prayers dutifully and perfectly, to pay zakat, that is alms, to perform hajj, and to observe fast during the month of Ramadan. This is from Sahih Bukhari. In Surah Al-Tawbah, verse 34 and 35, those who hoard up treasures of gold and silver and spend them not in the way of Allah, give them the news of a painful punishment on the day when that wealth will be heated in the fire of hell, and with it will be branded their foreheads, their sides, and their backs. And it will be said to them, this is the treasure which you hoarded for yourselves. Now taste of it what you used to hoard. There is no more powerful warning, folks, than this. That everything that you hoard, people that have it, people that have millions, there are Muslims that have millions, and they don't pay zakat. Christians pay 10% of their gross, not their net. Baha'is pay 19%. Muslims only have to pay 2.5%. And this is the reason that sometimes our bathroom looks like something that we wouldn't want our animals to live in. There are people that animals live in better surroundings than in some of the bathrooms that I've been to in masajids. And I think we should look at that. Because all that money that we have, there's a lot of money in this community.
Yes.
Loads of money in this community. And this is what's going to happen. It's going to be melted and the people are going to be branded with it. How important do you think this information is, folks? Based on the verses? Very. On the authority of Ali, the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah has enjoined upon rich Muslims a due to be taken from their properties corresponding to the needs of the poor among them. The poor will never suffer from starvation or lack of clothes unless the rich neglect their duty. If they do, Allah will surely hold them accountable and punish them severely. Egypt, a land of great riches, has 11 of the largest slums in the entire universe. A land highly populated by Muslims. I will not call any country a Muslim country when Muslims live there and people live in slums. Because that to me is a liability to my faith. That's not what Allah called us. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ made sure before he retired in the evening that the 40 people that lived to the north of him and the east of him and the west of him and the south of him, a 40-mile radius, were fed before he retired. And when you start talking about giving, people start running. People complain about all of the fundraisers in the month of Ramadan instead of saying, MashaAllah, an opportunity to be blessed. An opportunity to inherit Allah's love and Allah's blessing, Allah's barakah. An opportunity to avoid punishment. Ibn Abbas reported a woman came to the Messenger of Allah and said, my mother has died, and fast of a month are due from her. Thereupon he said, don't you see that if debt was due from her, would you not pay it? She said, yes, I would pay on her behalf. Thereupon he said, the debt of Allah deserves its payment more than the payment of anybody else. Sahih Muslim. Gold, silver, cash, and other items are subject to zakat. Any other asset will only become subject to zakat if it was acquired or purchased with the clear intention to resell. Investment. So for example, some of my Indo-Pak sisters might have $25,000 worth of gold that they were given on their wedding. No wonder they couldn't smile with all that weight. If the sister says, this is an investment, I've got it in the safety deposit box, never to be touched unless my husband is naughty, then I'm going to have a little nest egg to start my life over with. Then she's got to pay on that every year. But Allah is so merciful. If she brings it out of the safety deposit box and wears it once a year to a wedding, it's no longer an investment. That's called her jewelry. It's the mercy of Allah. So ladies, if you have gold, you can have the blessing of paying zakat if it's an investment, or you can have the blessing of the mercy of Allah and wear it. But you must wear it once a year. You've got to have your intention. Your niyyah has to be straight. Is this gold my investment, or is it my jewelry? And Allah knows your heart.
If you give away everything, then you will be happy.
But the
That's
problem
right.
is that you get these funky gold sets that you didn't ask for, and then you're not allowed to give them away, because if you give them away, then
You are allowed to give them away.
nobody wants you to. No, it's never. It's like culturally, it's very.
But that's cultural. Islamically, it says clearly in the Quran, If that which is given to you, if you want to give it, you can give it. It
Yeah.
says this in the Quran. Yeah, I understand culturally, your mother-in-law might hate you forever, but then you need to teach her the Quran. It says I can give it, I want to give it for the sake of Allah, with the blessings of Allah. And this is why it's so important for us to separate culture from Islam. Allah allows for our cultural things, but as long as it doesn't get in the way of truth.
The best is to give up.
No, we don't want to hurt people's feelings, but I don't want to hurt Allah's feelings. That's the most important feelings I'm worried about. I want Allah to be pleased with me more than I do my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law is not God, and if I let her be God, that's shirk. Right? If she becomes God in my life, that's shirk. So it's tough. You got to really keep your heart in the right place. Yes, sister.
I have a question. What if you receive inheritance from a family member and you know that they didn't pay zakat on it?
Say that again. If you
receive inheritance from a family member and you know that they didn't pay zakat on it during their life.
First of all, if you receive inheritance, it's yours. And you must do the right thing with it. If you know that they didn't pay zakat on it, you absolutely have all this fact, and you need to pay zakat on it. You're paying that for their benefit, though, so that they can be released from the punishment that comes with that. And remember that hadith that I just gave about the woman's mother?
Yeah.
Allah is more entitled to that money than someone else. A Muslim will only be required to pay zakat if he or she has full and legal ownership of an asset. Very important. Zakat is payable on 2.5% of the wealth one possesses above the nisab. So if I have $100,000, do I pay it on the 100,000 or do I pay it on the 100,000 minus the nisab? Very good. You're such a good student. Nisab, which is equal to the value of 3 ounces of gold, is the minimum amount of wealth one must have and maintain for 1 lunar year before they are liable to pay zakat. Now, I put a website up here that will give you the US dollar price for 1 ounce of gold and silver. As of July the 19th, which was yesterday, gold was $1,310.11 per ounce. So 3 ounces of gold is $3,930.33. So, hypothetically speaking, I want to see how good my students are. I pay all my debts. And in my savings account, no interest-bearing savings account, there is $3,960.33. What would I pay on?
1,000. Almost 2,000.
All right?
$30.
200.
Very good, Nijma, $30. Because that's the surplus. It's above the nisab. Everybody with me on that? How many people learned something new today? Raise your hand. Alhamdulillah. Okay. That's why we needed to do it. So now, 2.5% would be, if you had this as surplus, for 1 year, $98.26 for zakat. Very easy to figure it out. I'm going to give you some more details now for specific situations. So do you have $3,930.33 in cash savings? Don't answer. None of my business. Do you have $3,930.33 in stocks? Do you have $3,930.33 in gold or silver? Do you have $3,930.33 in business worth? Do you have it in cattle, in other assets, in all of the above? So, go to www.e-nisab.com/current. If you answer yes to any of the above, then you should pay zakat. And here is the form, and I have one. I'm going to start them over here, half of them. If anybody needs one to calculate, please don't get distracted by the form until we're finished.
The stocks go up and down.
Right.
Please go back one slide straight.
Okay, I'm going to go back one slide. So, the way you would calculate this is you see, if you, I have more if you need them, let me know. If I didn't pass enough out for one in each family to get them, let me know. Does anybody else need one of these? Okay. So assets and liabilities, the cash on hand, the balance held in the bank account. Real resale value of shares, stock, futures, retirement account, including their dividend. Gold, $1,310.11, and silver, $20.85 per ounce. Current value. Business net worth, merchandise and profits, investment real estate, property, farms. Now your resident is an exemption. You don't put anything there if you only own your resident. That doesn't count. Jewelry not worn annually, livestock, the net value of motor vehicles. There's an exemption of 1 per driver in your home. So for example, I own 2 vehicles. One for my wife and one for me. Those are exempt because it's 1 for her and 1 for me. You take the total from 1 to 9, that is your total of assets. And then you deduct any debts and expenses. And this is what usually happens. Because most people add that up and then maybe they have a $250,000 mortgage.
Brother, does child support count as income?
I'm going to let me give you a better answer. I'm not sure, sister. I need to research that.
Okay.
Because the child support, if it's a Muslim father, is actually the responsibility of the father of a child. So I need to find out what you do if the father doesn't fulfill that responsibility.
So what if you confused? Is that income to me? Does it count as an income?
I don't know. I need to find out. So if you'll email me, I'll talk to somebody that is more knowledgeable than I and get the answer for you. Because I don't want to ever pretend to know something I don't know. So,
Yes, sir. Did you say you exclude the debt on homes?
you subtract it from all your assets, and then that determines your total.
But you're putting the value of your home in here.
Absolutely.
But you did say if the home was paid for, you don't pay zakat on your home?
You do not pay zakat on your home. You have to live in it. Yeah, and this is one of the things this is one of the reasons economically that most scholars say that it is permissible in America to buy a home. No scholar will tell you that riba is not haram, but many scholars will say it is permissible to buy a home, and they will tell you pay it off as soon as you can because a home is considered Islamically a need. Does anybody want to live in the street? It's a need, believe me.
What about cars?
Cars, you get 1 exemption per driver in the home. So you can own 3 cars. Those are exempted if you have 3 people in your family. But if you have, let's say you have, you got a car for each of you, and you got another car, and you got to pay on that car.
Car value keep on going down,
It
down.
depreciates. That's right. So you got to know the value of that car currently. So the best way to do that is Kelley Blue Book. Kelley Blue Book will give you a pretty good idea of the value of your car if you're honest. So remember that, Kelley Blue Book, if you have extra cars.
coverage down to 5,000.
I'm sorry.
Something about, but if you own a home that's
Oh, I'm sorry. So let's go back up here and look at this. So where it says deduct debts and expenses, if you are buying a home and your outstanding mortgage on that home is $250,000, that's what would be there in that line. Then because your debts are more than your income, if that was the case, that your assets and above, then you would owe on that
But you
amount.
have to pay your home as fast as you pay.
But you need to pay your home as fast as possible. Am I making sense, folks?
Yes.
Yes, Ed.
The only thing that's a little confusing is, it's kind of, you're getting the benefit of the debt on the home, and here you say the home is exempt, you're not showing at least the way it's done.
Yeah, your home would be exempt if you owned it clear and free.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
But if it is a debt,
You have to
Then-
put the value.
you have to put the value of that debt.
Can I just do a quick example?
Yes, yes.
If your house is worth, let's say, $500,000 or $500,000, and you have a debt of $250,000, the net $250 of the debt minus the value, you have to include.
That would be the Zakat eligible total right there. You see here, I've got deduct your debts and expenses, and then the Zakat eligible total. So that's exactly right. Well said. Then you would ensure that that amount exceeds the $3,933 and 33 cents, I think it was. I forgot to put that there. And then you would multiply that by 0.025, and that would give you the amount that you would pay. Most Americans I know do not have to pay zakat because they have mortgages. However, I want to encourage all of you, one of the reasons I use this is to get your home paid off. I want to tell you that everything you own in this world owns you. You can be a slave to Allah, but you can also be a slave to everything you think you own. Everything you own has to be maintained. If you buy a car, you've got to change the oil every 3,500 miles or every 5,000 now they tell you. You've got to put a new set of tires every 30,000 miles if they last that long. Everything you own, you're a slave to. The fewer things you own, the freer you will be to be the slave of Allah. And that's just a lesson that I hope you can gather today. So, yes, sorry.
I've heard some people say this, and I just want your opinion on it. They say that when we pay taxes to the government, and that's a large amount, 30%. So that doesn't count as a tax.
No, that's not tax. That's not zakat. Your taxes really are buying you roads and various public amenities that you use. That's not zakat. It's to your benefit.
I think
See the
taxes
consequence?
would be considered a bill, essentially, at the end of every year. Something that we owe, just like we owe property taxes on our home, I would imagine
It's your
that
expense. It is.
income taxes would be an expense.
It is an expense. Yes.
There is deductible.
Okay. So, alms are for the poor and the needy, and those employed to administer the funds. For those whose hearts have been reconciled to the truth, for those in bondage and in debt, in the cause of Allah, and for the wayfarer. Thus it is ordained by Allah, and Allah is full of knowledge and wisdom. This is that verse again that divides the group up into 8 categories, which I have spelled out again for you so you can see. Somebody had a question? I'm sorry. Yes, brother.
You were talking about
Pensions. I would recommend that there's a few websites you can get on to get greater detail. For example, I'm trying to find out an answer right now. I have some money in a fund that the government matched when I was working for the Department of Justice. That is surplus money. I can't get it though until I'm 65, which seems a little unfair because I didn't dictate that it's there, but I don't know the answer to that. My policy is to teach you everything I can teach you that I know, and what I don't know to tell you, so that you're very clear. I will never ever try to stroke my ego by teaching you something I don't know. So I would recommend maybe Triple IT if you contact them in Herndon. I think they're still in Herndon. They've got some material about specifics like that. I do not really know what the best thing to do about that. Triple IT. It's the International Islamic Triple IT. Okay.
But you will get only minimum distribution of that, matching money.
I'm trying to give you the basics, folks. You know, let me tell you this. The reality is that most people, according to the research, do not pay this. And if you look at our masajids and the state of the ummah, it's obvious that we're not paying. Because we have some of the greatest wealth of any other group in the world. We have more educated people. We probably, in this community of 1,000 families, we probably have 300 doctors. I'm just trying to put it in perspective. So we need to know about this. The punishment is so severe not to know about it. I'm trying to give you everything I can give you, and what I don't give you, go and find out. Ask the scholars. Ask Imam Tariq. He's far superior in knowledge than I am. But I can't be a responsible imam and not share with you at least what I know about this. It is so vitally important to your iman, to who you are as a Muslim.
Statistically, it is, if we give zakat every Muslim, there will be no hungry Muslim.
Absolutely. If every single Muslim in the world, forget about the other populations, if just the Muslims paid zakat, there would not be a hungry person in the world. And that to me is really heartbreaking.
Sad. Sad.
Because we say as Muslims, I want for my brother what I want for myself. And this is why I always say to people, you tell me you have all these friends on Facebook. If you think that they're your friend, just ask them, do me a favor, will you send me $1 and find out how quick they defriend you. Because you will find out who your real friends are when you start dealing in their pocketbook and their purse strings. Because that speaks loud. Money speaks loud. Yes, brother.
Just a quick comment on, if you really think about it, people who don't want to pay zakat it'd be easy to manipulate this so you don't really have to pay zakat. So in the true spirit of Islam, Allah knows our niyat, right? The intention that we have. And then if you look at this at another level, if everybody paid zakat, what it's doing is it's taking idle money out and circulating it. So your economy boosts. You not only get rid of hunger and homelessness or whatever it is, but you also create a more vibrant economy, and you unslave or deslave people, because people who have debt or who are poor, you can take them out of that by giving them zakat, and you empower them. So not only is it just like that important pillar and there's a formula and everything, but there's a bigger benefit if everybody participates.
There's a global benefit. Yeah. You're absolutely right. It's absolutely
benefits from the whole thing.
Absolutely. I have said, and I still contend this, if we as Muslims would build more Muslim schools and say to the kids, we have the most educated people in America. True, in the Muslim community. We have the wisest, brightest. I don't hold a light to a lot of people in this community in terms of education. But we have some bright people. If we were build schools and say, you don't have to send your child to a public school, you bring your child to the Muslim school. We will give you education. It would be just like Africa. Africa became Catholic because the Catholic Church educated people. I was sitting having dinner with a priest one time when I was with the Department of Justice, and his last name was something like Sadiq, Father Sadiq. So I said to him, tell me about your genealogy. He said, all my family were Muslim. He said, but we were poor, and the Catholic Church gave me my education. And I became Catholic. And I'm going to tell you something, folks. If we did that, if we would give the way Allah enjoins us to give, I believe with all my heart that in 10 years this will be predominantly a Muslim nation. I believe it with all my heart. And we have so much to give. I mean, you know, I was speaking to a doctor in this community the other day, and it's funny because he was speaking to me like I was a doctor, which was making me crack up inside. He was giving me ratios and all of this, and I was actually touched that he thought I could follow it. But I mean, the intelligence, you know, while I was in London, I lost a very dear friend that actually did his PhD at Harvard. He was an economist, and I went to visit him often, and every time I went to visit him, even though he was in very poor health, his spirit woke. I would recite Quran to him and his spirit would wake. He would raise his hand. He would try to say the Shahada. We just have amazingly, we have such capacity, such potential as an ummah. If we would just fear Allah, if we would take this stuff and look at the benefit even if we did it selfishly, as a global benefit of what we could get out of what we give, like Dr. Hussein was saying, it's exponential. You know, the whole Islamic precept is taking risks. The whole idea, Allah has encouraged you, don't hold on to cash. Have a business. This is why trade is so important. Islam was built on the back of a trader, Khadija, radiallahu anha, who hired the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, who was so honest that she sent someone to him to say, hey dude, I want to marry you, man. My servant came back and told me how impressive you were and how you were with the people. And I want you to marry me. And now we think women can't propose to men? Forget it. That's the sunnah for women to propose to men. It is. It's the first example. You go, women. If you see a man out there, if you can find a good one, let me know. I'll go tell him you want to marry him. But we got to find some good ones first.
Deborah's supposed to know I know you.
Yeah.
No, me, Sunni.
I was, you know, just in sharing some of this, you know, I was speaking to a young man, one of